Welcome to a documentary experience defined by absolute transparency. We guarantee that the upcoming scenes are entirely unfiltered and unedited. This is raw, immersive footage from the front lines of justice, providing an unpolished look at those who uphold the law.
Step back. Badge. Now.
Here, scan it. It's active.
That could be anyone. Step out of line.
Am I being detained? Yes or no?
Until we verify. Don't make this difficult.
You're delaying the governor's emergency briefing. Call your supervisor right now.
Who do you think you are?
The state public safety director. And every second of...
The security checkpoint at the Jefferson State Government Complex never slept. At 8:12 a.m., metal detectors hummed in a steady rhythm. Fluorescent lights reflected off polished marble floors, and a thin line of employees moved forward, clutching coffee cups and ID badges. That was when the voice cut through the routine. "Sir, stop right there. You need to step back." The man froze mid-step. He was tall, black early 40s, wearing a navy blazer over an open-collar shirt. No tie. A leather briefcase in his left hand. He turned slowly, palms visible, eyes calm. "Is there a problem, officer?" One of the officers shifted his stance hand, resting near his belt. "We need to know why you're here. This area is restricted." The words hung in the air. Restricted. The man glanced past them at the government seal etched into the glass wall behind the checkpoint. He had walked through this entrance dozens of times before. He took a breath. "I work here. I'm late for a briefing." That should have ended it. It didn't. "Badge, now." The second officer stepped closer, blocking his path. The hum of the metal detector seemed louder. A woman 2 people back in line slowed her steps. Someone behind her raised a phone, pretending to text. The man reached inside his jacket slowly and pulled out an access card. He held it up. The officer barely glanced at it. "That could be anyone's. Anyone's." The man's jaw tightened for half a second, then relaxed. His voice stayed level. "You can scan it. It's active." Instead, the officer shook his head. "We're going to need additional verification." "What office are you visiting?" "My office." The first officer's eyebrows lifted. "Don't get smart. Just answer the question." A misunderstanding had become a challenge. The air felt heavier, stale with recycled conditioning and something else. Suspicion. The man could feel eyes on his back now. The click of a phone camera. A quiet whisper. "What's going on?" "I'm not being smart," he said. "I'm answering you. I'm scheduled to brief the governor's emergency council at 8:30. The officers exchanged a look. A brief one, decisive. "Step out of line, sir." The words landed like a verdict. The man didn't move at first. Not out of defiance. Out of calculation. He knew this moment. Every black professional did. Push back and risk escalation. Comply and swallow the insult. He stepped aside. As they guided him toward the wall, the sounds of the building continued like nothing was wrong. Badges beeped, shoes tapped. The system moved on, but the tension stayed tight as a drawn wire. One officer leaned in, voice low. "Until we confirm who you are, you're not going anywhere." The man looked straight ahead at the state seal again. An emblem he helped protect. An institution he ran security drills for. He said nothing, but his silence carried weight. Because what the officers didn't know, what no one in that line knew yet, was that the man they were detaining for not belonging was the highest-ranking public safety official in the state, and every second of this was about to matter. The moment stretched at the checkpoint, but the story did not begin there. To understand how a man with full authority over the state's public safety apparatus could be questioned like an intruder, you have to go back decades long before the marble floors and access scanners. Marcus Hale grew up on the south side of Riverton, a neighborhood better known for police sirens than college acceptance letters. His mother worked night shifts as a hospital orderly. His father drove city buses until his back gave out. Emergency response was not an abstract concept in that household. It was survival. When Marcus was 11, an apartment fire 2 buildings down filled their street with smoke. He watched firefighters pull a child from a 3rd-floor window. The child lived. That image stayed with him. He joined the Volunteer Fire Corps at 18. Then Emergency Medical Services, then the State Academy. He was the one who stayed late to study disaster protocols. The one who volunteered for hurricane deployments. The one who learned how small mistakes cascade into mass casualties. Over 20 years, he moved from field response to coordination, from coordination to command. Floods, chemical spills, school shootings, narrowly averted through early intervention. His name was on after-action reports that saved budgets and lives. When the previous public safety director retired, Marcus was not the obvious choice. He was younger, he was quieter, and he was black in a system where leadership had always looked one way. But the numbers spoke. Response times improved under his pilot programs. Interagency communication failures dropped. The governor appointed him after a unanimous committee recommendation. His confirmation hearing lasted 12 minutes, no objections. Marcus did not see the job as power. He saw it as insulation. If systems worked, people never noticed them. That morning at the government complex, he was headed to a briefing on wildfire readiness, a dry season, a real risk. He had reviewed the maps at home before dawn. The officers at the checkpoint came from a different trajectory. Officer Daniel Cross had been on the force 8 years. Solid evaluations. No commendations. No major discipline. His supervisors described him as procedural. He followed checklists. He did not improvise well. 2 prior complaints alleged discourtesy during ID checks. Both closed as not sustained. Officer Eric Nolan was newer. 3 years in. Former military police. Strong on perimeter security. Less comfortable with civilian nuance. His training records showed repeated emphasis on threat identification. Fewer notes on de-escalation. He took pride in vigilance. The government complex had increased security the previous month after an anonymous threat. Posters reminded officers to challenge unfamiliar faces. Be alert. Be proactive. Those words sat in the back of Nolan's mind as Marcus approached the checkpoint without a visible badge around his neck. Blazer, briefcase. Confidence without explanation. To Nolan, that read as anomaly. Cross saw the access card but did not scan it. He had already decided this was a verification moment. And once that decision was made, every answer Marcus gave was filtered through it. Working here became claiming authority. Late for a briefing became an excuse. Mentioning the governor escalated suspicion instead of resolving it. Neither officer recognized Marcus. They were not required to, but they were trained to verify before detaining. The scanner was inches away. The internal directory was 1 radio call away. Yet neither option was taken, because backstories do not just belong to victims. Cross had grown up hearing that mistakes at secure sites ended careers. Nolan had been taught that hesitation could be fatal, and both carried an unspoken assumption reinforced by years of images about who usually needs extra scrutiny. In their minds, this was not personal, it was procedure. From Marcus's side, it was familiar. Not the location. The feeling. The subtle shift when credibility had to be proven twice. The calculation of tone. He knew he could end it by stating his title outright. But he also knew how that could land. Either as arrogance or provocation. He chose restraint. That choice allowed the moment to deepen. As Marcus stood by the wall, he replayed the schedule in his head. 8:25 briefing starts. 8:30 wildfire projections. He thought about the irony. The man responsible for coordinating state responses to emergencies was now one misunderstanding away from becoming one. Across from him, Cross felt a flicker of uncertainty. Something about the man's calm did not match his internal script. But backing down without confirmation felt like loss of control. Nolan noticed the phones in the background. He did not like being recorded. That hardened him. 2 histories converged at a security line. One built on decades of earned authority. The other on routine and fear of error. Neither side yet knew how much damage the next few minutes would cause. And above them, unseen, the cameras kept rolling. The line at the checkpoint had slowed to a crawl. What should have taken seconds was now drawing attention. A man in a gray suit glanced openly. A woman near the metal detector lifted her phone higher, no longer pretending. The quiet murmur of a government building began to fracture into pockets of curiosity and discomfort. Marcus stood with his back near the wall, briefcase still in his hand. He had not been told he was detained, but he had not been told he was free to go. That space in between was deliberate, unofficial, uncomfortable. "Sir, you need to answer the question," Officer Cross said. "What office are you visiting?" Marcus looked at him, not sharply, not challengingly, just directly. "Emergency management and public safety." Cross nodded slowly, as if weighing the answer. Nolan leaned toward him and spoke quietly, but not quietly enough. "That's a common one." Marcus heard it. The assumption folded neatly into place. He reached into his jacket again, slower this time, conscious of optics, conscious of cameras. He produced a second credential, an official state identification. Name, photo, title printed beneath. Cross took it. This time he looked longer. The pause should have shifted the moment. Instead, it stretched it. He turned the card over. "You got another ID?" "This is my state credential." Nolan folded his arms. Anyone can print cards. Marcus exhaled through his nose. Barely noticeable. He nodded toward the scanner. You can verify it, right now. Cross hesitated. The scanner sat idle. One beep would settle everything. But now there were eyes. Phones. A growing sense that this was no longer just about access. Behind the rope line, a staffer whispered, "That's messed up." Another voice responded, "Why are they stopping him?" Nolan stepped forward. "Sir, until we confirm you're going to remain here." "Am I being detained?" Marcus asked. The question landed heavy. It was precise, legal, calm. Cross shifted his weight. "You're being held for verification." "So yes," Marcus said. "I'm being detained." Nolan's jaw tightened. "Don't play games." Marcus didn't raise his voice. "I'm not. I'm asking for clarity." The crowd had grown. Someone had moved closer to the rope. A phone camera caught the officers from the side now. The red recording light was visible. Cross lowered his voice. "You need to cooperate." "I have been cooperating," Marcus said. "I've provided credentials. I've offered verification. What else do you need?" A beat. Too long. Nolan broke it. Step away from the checkpoint. That was new. That was escalation. Marcus looked past them again toward the glass doors, the seal, the hallway that led to his office. He could already picture the briefing room, the maps on the screen, the chairs filling. He imagined an aide checking the time. He complied, again. As they guided him a few steps farther, a woman spoke up from the line. He didn't do anything. Nolan ignored her. Another voicemail. "Just scan the card." Cross raised a hand. "Sir, this doesn't concern you." "It concerns all of us," someone replied. The temperature in the room changed. Not physically, socially. What had been an isolated interaction was now a public one. And public mistakes behave differently. Marcus felt the familiar calculation tighten in his chest. Every word now had an audience. Every move would be replayed. He straightened his posture. "You're delaying a state security briefing," he said evenly. "If you need confirmation, call your supervisor. Or call my office." "What office is that?" Nolan asked. Marcus met his eyes. "The office of the State Public Safety Director." The words landed, but they did not immediately register. Nolan scoffed. Cross frowned. "Sure it is." The phone stayed up. The cameras kept rolling. The officers had crossed the point where walking it back quietly was no longer an option. And Marcus knew it, because now this was no longer about getting through a checkpoint. It was about who was going to be accountable when the truth came out. The request to step farther away changed the nature of everything. Marcus felt it immediately. The subtle shift from inconvenience to control. The officers were no longer trying to confirm who he was. They were trying to manage the situation they had created. Officer Nolan's hand rested higher on his belt now. Not threatening, but present. Officer Cross angled his body slightly, placing himself between Marcus and the checkpoint. It was a textbook containment posture. "Sir, you're going to wait here until we sort this out." Marcus looked down at the strip of marble beneath his shoes. He noted the scuff marks, the echo of footsteps passing without stopping. Time was moving. His watch vibrated once on his wrist. 8:27. "What authority are you holding me under?" Marcus asked. Cross did not answer immediately. He glanced at Nolan. Nolan shook his head almost imperceptibly. "For security reasons," Cross said finally. That was not an answer, it was a placeholder. Marcus nodded once. He shifted his briefcase to the floor at his feet, deliberately slowly. The leather made a dull sound when it touched the stone. The small act grounded him. He stood straighter. "I have complied with every instruction," he said. "You have my credentials. You have refused to verify them. I am now being prevented from performing my duties." Nolan stepped closer. "Lower your voice." Marcus did not raise it. He did not lower it. He kept it exactly where it was. The crowd pressed in tighter, though the rope remained in place. A man in a blue badge lanyard whispered, "This is going to blow up." A woman mouthed, "Oh my God," while filming openly. Cross felt the room slipping. He made a decision, a bad one. "Sir, turn around for me." The words landed heavy. They carried implication without accusation. Marcus did not turn. He looked at Cross instead. "Am I under arrest?" No, Cross said too quickly. "But you need to comply." With what Marcus asked. "You have not given me a lawful order." Nolan's voice cut in sharp. "Turn around, now!" That was the moment. The injustice did not explode. It crystallized. Marcus slowly turned, not out of fear, but to prevent escalation. He placed his hands behind his back without being asked, not clasped, open, visible. The cameras captured it all. The click that followed was not loud, but it was unmistakable. Metal touching metal. Not cuffs. Yet. But restraint. A grip on his wrist. Firm. Unnecessary. A collective inhale rippled through the crowd. He didn't do anything someone said aloud. Cross ignored it. Nolan guided Marcus another step away from the checkpoint. The pressure on his arm increased. Not pain. Control. Marcus felt heat rise in his chest. Not panic. Focus. His mind detached and began recording details. Time, positions, names on badges, camera angles. He had led after action reviews for less. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. Nolan leaned in close. "Don't threaten me." "That wasn't a threat," Marcus replied. It was a statement. They walked him toward a small side corridor away from the main flow. The hum of the building dulled. The crowd's voices blurred into a distant murmur. The isolation was intentional. As they stopped, Cross finally looked unsettled. He saw it now. The posture, the restraint, the optics. He reached for his radio. "Control, this is checkpoint 1. We need a supervisor for ID verification." The radio crackled. "Stand by." Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. He exhaled slowly. In his head, he was already drafting the report. Not emotionally, procedurally. Because this was no longer about him being embarrassed in public. This was about authority misused, documented, and irreversible. And somewhere above them, the cameras kept recording every second of the slow, unnecessary injustice. The supervisor arrived 7 minutes later. 7 minutes in a government building feels longer when cameras are rolling and certainty is gone. Footsteps echoed down the side corridor before Lieutenant Sarah Whitman came into view. Mid-50s. Silver hair pulled tight. Command presence that did not need volume. "What's the situation?" she asked. Cross spoke first. "Possible unauthorized access attempt. Individual refused to provide verifiable identification." Marcus turned slightly so she could see his face clearly. His hands were still behind his back. Not restrained, but not free. "Lieutenant," he said evenly, "my name is Marcus Hale." Whitman's eyes flicked to his face, then to the credentials still in Cross's hand. "You didn't scan it," she said. Cross hesitated. "We were in the process of verification." Whitman took the card. One glance. Then she looked up sharply. "Why is the state public safety director standing in my hallway?" The words cut through the space like air rushing back into a sealed room. Cross blinked. Nolan stiffened. The crowd at the end of the corridor leaned forward collectively. Whitman stepped closer to Marcus. "Sir, are you all right?" Marcus nodded once. "I am now. I was not 5 minutes ago." Whitman turned slowly toward the officers. Her voice stayed calm. That made it worse. "You detained him without scanning a credential that would have verified his identity in under 2 seconds. Nolan opened his mouth. "Lieutenant, we had a security alert last month and he wasn't wearing a visible badge." Whitman raised a hand. "Stop." She scanned Marcus's credential herself. The scanner beeped. Green light. Immediate confirmation. The room went silent. Whitman exhaled. She handed the card back to Marcus with both hands. "Director Hale, I apologize. This should not have happened." Marcus took the card. He did not smile. He did not nod. He simply looked at the 2 officers who had stood between him and his own building. Cross's face had drained of color. Nolan stared at the floor. Whitman turned back to them. "You both escalated a routine access check into a public detention. You bypassed verification. You ignored bystander concerns. And you created a security incident where there was none." She paused. "Do either of you have anything you would like to say?" Cross swallowed. "Sir, I didn't know who you were." Marcus met his eyes. That was not the problem. Whitman gestured toward the main corridor. "Clear the area." As Marcus stepped back toward the checkpoint, the crowd parted. Phones lowered slowly. A woman whispered, "Oh, wow." Another shook her head. Marcus glanced at his watch. 8:39. The briefing had started without him. He turned back to Whitman. "Lieutenant, I need copies of all footage. Checkpoint cameras, hallway cameras, body cams if any were active, and a written report of this interaction." Whitman nodded. "You'll have them today." Marcus adjusted his blazer. He picked up his briefcase. The leather was warm from the floor. As he walked through the checkpoint unimpeded now, the scanner beeped again. Green light. Immediate. Effortless. The irony was not lost on anyone. Behind him, 2 officers stood frozen in the aftermath of a mistake they could no longer undo. And ahead of him, consequences were already taking shape. The video surfaced before noon. It started as a 30-second clip posted by a legislative aide who had been standing in line. No commentary, no edits. Just the moment Marcus was asked to step away, the calm question about detention, the hands moving behind his back. By lunch, it had been reposted thousands of times. By mid-afternoon, it was everywhere. State official detained at his own building. Public safety director questioned by security. This is who we stop. The comment sections filled faster than any press office could manage. Some were angry, some stunned, some bitterly unsurprised. The footage did not need narration. It showed procedure without judgment and still felt wrong. By 3 p.m., the governor's office issued a statement acknowledging the incident and confirming an internal review. By 5, the state inspector general had opened a formal investigation. Not because of Marcus's title, because the video showed a breakdown that could not be explained away as confusion. Marcus spent that afternoon doing what he always did. Briefings, calls, a wildfire readiness meeting that ran long. He did not give interviews. He did not post statements. He let the process move. Behind closed doors, the machinery turned quickly. Checkpoint logs showed the credential scanner had been operational the entire time. Training records showed both officers had completed de-escalation modules less than 6 months earlier. Body camera data confirmed Nolan's camera had been active. The audio was clear. Within 48 hours, Officer Nolan was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Officer Cross followed the next morning. The union issued a cautious response about due process. It did not deny the facts. More footage emerged. A second angle from the hallway. A clearer view of Marcus standing with his hands behind his back. A third clip showing bystanders objecting. The story crossed state lines. Civil rights organizations called for policy changes, not apologies. Analysts broke down the interaction frame by frame on evening news segments. Former security directors pointed out the failure to verify. Legal experts noted the ambiguity of the detention. The question stopped being who is Marcus Hale. It became why did this happen at all? The internal investigation concluded in 6 weeks. The findings were blunt. Unjustified detention. Failure to follow verification protocol. Escalation without cause. The report cited specific timestamps and training violations. Officer Nolan resigned before termination could be finalized. Officer Cross was dismissed for cause. Both names entered internal databases that would follow them. The state announced mandatory changes. Credential scanning before any secondary questioning. Clear definitions of detention authority. Additional training focused on bias recognition. Not symbolic. Procedural. Marcus declined the settlement offered to avoid litigation. He did not want money. He wanted precedent. The state agreed to formalize the reforms without a lawsuit. At a closed-door meeting weeks later, Marcus addressed a room of security supervisors. This was not about disrespect, he said. It was about systems that fail quietly until someone with visibility stands in the wrong place at the wrong time. No one argued. The clip is still online, still shared, still debated, not because of who Marcus is, but because of how easily authority can be misplaced and how hard it is to reclaim once the cameras are on. Justice this time was not dramatic. It was procedural. Careers ended, policies changed, records updated. And that was enough, for now. What happened at the Jefferson State Government Complex was not a misunderstanding. It was a textbook failure of lawful procedure, and the law is clear about why. Under established constitutional standards, a person may not be detained without reasonable articulable suspicion of criminal activity. Marcus Hale presented valid government credentials. He offered immediate verification. The officers had access to a scanner, a directory, and supervisory channels. None were used. Instead, they substituted assumption for verification. That is not discretion. That is a violation. Detention does not require handcuffs to be unlawful. Preventing someone from leaving, directing their movement, and asserting control without legal basis constitutes a seizure. Courts have ruled this repeatedly. The absence of formal arrest language does not erase the reality of restraint. In this case, the question, "Am I being detained?" was not rhetorical. It was legally decisive. The psychological layer matters just as much. Bias rarely announces itself loudly. It operates through shortcuts. Who looks like they belong? Who needs extra proof? Who is treated as an exception instead of a default? When systems rely on human judgment without mandatory verification steps, bias fills the gaps. That is how a man responsible for public safety becomes a perceived threat inside his own workplace. This is why procedures exist. Not to slow things down, to protect against instinct. For the public, there are practical lessons here. If you are stopped, ask calmly whether you are being detained. That question forces clarity. If you are detained, ask the basis. Do not argue. Do not escalate. Document names, times, and locations if you can. If others are present, encourage lawful recording. Cameras do not provoke misconduct. They reveal it. If you witness something like this, stay observant. Recording from a reasonable distance is often lawful in public government spaces. Speak if you can do so safely. Silence enables normalization. And for institutions, the lesson is uncomfortable but necessary. Training alone is not enough. Accountability must be automatic. Verification must precede escalation. Authority must be constrained by process, not personality. Otherwise, the system works only for those who already fit its expectations. Marcus Hale did not raise his voice. He did not invoke his title until forced. He complied, documented, and let the process expose itself. That is why this case matters. Not because of who he is, but because of what it proves. If this can happen to the person in charge of public safety, it can happen to anyone. The question is not whether bias exists. It is whether systems are built to stop it before harm occurs. Now you've seen what happens when they are not. What would you have done if you were standing in that line?
Driven by the pursuit of truth, our mission is to demand transparency and hold power to account. We trust in hard evidence because the records do not lie. Thank you for watching and staying informed.